This conference will now be recorded.
Right. Well, hello everyone. I'm really excited to be with you all. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time, and it is very cold in upstate New York. I hope you're having a good start to your day or midday, wherever you are. Um, I was first connected to the group by my friends at Gather Content, and it was just serendipitous that I was able to publish this article on Monday um, about centralizing content strategy, and it is something that I've been working at really hard for probably the past 6 years at Cornell University. Um, and this pandemic has just given us a slingshot opportunity to move this work even faster. I would guess it would have been something that we would have probably had 3 more years to work at to get where we are today, and instead, we've been kind of slingshotted forward and crash landed where we are. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I see happening in my organization, and have confirmed from others who work in large higher education institutions um, about what we're seeing in this new attention that we have towards digital content and the need for a centralized content strategy. So that's kind of the crux of the article that I wrote. And I just also wanted to say that I am a highly interruptible speaker. So if anyone has questions before we break for questions, you can feel free to interrupt me. Um, just a little bit of background. For those of you who aren't familiar with Cornell University, it's located in upstate New York. It's a rural campus, large university, prestigious university. There's about 20,000 students at any given time. And I work in the division that's responsible for alumni affairs and for fundraising. So a lot of the work that I do intersects between alumni engagement, serving volunteers for the university, and then also mainly our annual giving strategies. So bringing in new donors to Cornell. We're quite a large organization ourselves. The division that I work within has, we're pushing 400 staff members in our division. That those annual giving dollars usually represent about 45 million a year. But the division as a whole fundraising is in a good year, like this year, we're looking at like about a $600 million um, uh, revenue for the university in terms of fundraising. So really, really big group, really big effort. Um, but our content strategies and the ways we communicate with our alumni base is actually like extremely decentralized. Um, we have over 20 different colleges and different units on our campus that I've actually wrote an article previous to this for Gather Content about higher education just being this gold mine of stories and great content to serve our communities, but we have a real challenge in mining it and getting it out. And so that's a lot of the digital strategy work that I've been involved in over the past 6 years. So now, new world, in-person communication is kind of out the door at this point, and online communication, online engagement, online events is really at the center of what our organization is interested in. I haven't had so many email correspondences back and forth with my VP ever. He has now found he's keenly aware and interested in digital content and digital content strategy for the first time. So that's exciting. But the challenge was really in now that the ways that we engage our community have changed and they've moved online. We had many of our staff members involved in creating regional opportunities for alumni all over the world. And now we have one place for those opportunities, and that's the internet. So what happens when we've gone from having many folks serving communities locally to now many folks all vying for the same attention in one space on the internet? How do we centralize that? How do we streamline it so our audience, so it makes sense for our audience? And so the way we've tackled it, the way I've tackled it was first to cast a really wide net across the whole university, just to ask who's interested in this, because right now everyone's interested in how you create a digital download or how you create an online seminar. And so I wanted to make sure to cast that really wide net because I knew that there were pockets across the university that were interested in digital content, maybe for the first time. So that was the first thing we did, was, I went out to my staff members and said, anyone else you're connected to, anyone who might be serving our audience, please raise your hand if you're interested in being a part of what we're calling our digital content working group. And then the next thing that I did was to be sure to identify some of the key decision makers. So in order to streamline what we were our effort, we were going to need to have the authority to tell some groups to stop what they were doing, and to kind of get in line and get organized. So identifying one executive sponsor was really important to the work. We found someone who had that authority, pled our case, and was able to bring her on as the executive sponsor. And in many ways, she was leading the charge to get this work out the door. And so we started with one executive sponsor, and then identified more decision makers who were going to be able to move things and bring more community members along. So we casted this really big wide net first. I would say that's about, that group is about 95 people from across the university who are interested in our digital content strategy, and then honed in on a group of maybe 20 key decision makers that I would need to relay ideas to, look for feedback on decisions that we were trying to make, and then finalize decisions within that group. From there, I surveyed that broader audience and asked the 95 people who said that they were interested in helping, I asked them how they wanted to help and provided a few different ways for them to be able to feel involved and feel part of the process. So I am a big fan of Airtable. That is my homegrown database for all project work. And so I've spun up a little Airtable database and surveyed that group, asking them how they would want to be a part of our new content strategy work. Do they want to share ideas? Did they have stuff that was already produced that we could reshare? Did they want to support marketing efforts? And at this point, I'm really looking to ramp up our marketing teams and production teams. And if there's an opportunity for someone whose work might have changed in the last month and they could help fill a gap in our need, I wanted to hear about that. So asked if they were interested in helping with marketing or production, if they were interested in reviewing and approving content. And that's kind of a sneaky ask. I wasn't just looking for people who might be solid copy editors, but I was trying to flag people who were interested in the approval process, so that I could either bring them into the fold as a steering member or just make sure that I was keeping them aware of the decisions that were being made. So that one helped me flag some people in that broader group that were really more interested in the decisions that were being made and approving content that would be in front of the audiences. And then I was also really looking for folks that could help me coordinate with our campus or other organizational partners, because the coordination of this is really the tricky part. That's really the hard work. And so I'm looking for other staff members to raise their hand and say, I can help you coordinate with partners. So That's been incredibly helpful as this work is evolving for me to be able to go back to that survey and say, who said that they could help with marketing? Because I need some help in a pinch. And then I'm able to directly reach out to folks to get them started. The next thing, and I think this was really important for all of us right now, was adding some extra time and giving myself some grace in just taking the time to get organized. Taking the time to say that there's not a decision yet because we need more time to get organized. It was organizing people, but then also organizing this flood of ideas that had started coming to me. And I mentioned already that I haven't seen so many emails from my VP ever. Part of that is that he's forwarding me everything that he thinks is interesting in terms of digital content, what the Met was doing or what his alma mater is doing, a past organization he worked for, what they're doing, other things he's seeing across campus. Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? And it's all coming into my inbox. And my inbox is not a place to stay organized. So I really pushed back for almost 2 weeks in the beginning of this process, where folks are asking, what are we doing? What's the strategy? Can I plan? Can I create? And I had to say, you're 2 steps ahead of me. I need some time to get organized. And then so doing that, I was able to, again, lean on Airtable to create an intake form for folks who were sending me ideas. So for my VP, I was able to kind of get his ideas out of my inbox and get them into Airtable. And then for folks who were more willing to sit and type out a form for me, I was able to share an intake form with that broader group of, say, 90 or so folks, and say, this is the place where I want you to send me ideas. I want you to send me things that are already in the can, that are ready to feature, and things that you're planning. And that's been helpful. It's still a challenge, to be fair, to comb through all of that. But getting organized, getting those content ideas all in one place was really important. Leaning on project management tools to assign to-dos to staff, update our production and marketing calendars. And what we're seeing is that we can't rely on our content strategy of the past for many reasons. Our websites aren't quite built for the amount of digital interactions that we're trying to serve. They're really built for in-person events and not online events. So we're finding we have to adjust things on the web. In our marketing calendars, we're finding that we actually have to move in much quicker succession. So where we might have given a 2-week lead time for registration for an online event, now we're looking more like a 4-day window. So a lot of adjustments to production timelines and marketing calendars, and leaning heavily on those project management tools to keep ourselves organized. So the next thing that we did was develop some content themes. We were seeing early on a lot of programming, a lot of articles and things that were being produced by the university were relevant and timely. A lot of business articles, a lot of COVID response, a lot of entrepreneurship, and these kind of topics. And so we were able to go through the ideas that were coming in and tag them with these themes, and then also create some buckets of content that we knew we wanted to serve our audience with. Health and wellness content, family content, lifelong learning content, career support, things that we know our audience needed. And I was, in taking the time to get things organized and having these content themes approved by our steering group, was then able to say, you know what, we've got a ton of really great business content. We've got a ton of really great COVID response content. What I'm missing is the health and wellness and the career support. And so I've been able to now go back out to the group, tell them where our gaps are. And the other thing that we're keeping track of is how we're sharing these content themes each week with our audiences and seeing how folks are reacting to them. So I had mentioned the themes that sound like entrepreneurship, wellness, creativity, but we're now starting to see that the type of content, the content type, is an important balance to set. Digital downloads are the most popular thing that we've been sharing with our audience. No matter what the mix is, no matter what kind of celebrity alumnus we put in front of them, if there's something that is available for download, that's been our top clicked feature. So now knowing that that is a content type that they desire, we're able to plan for the future and making sure that we're providing some kind of digital download each week. The next thing, let me see, you've got my article ahead of me now. Thank you for keeping that scrolling for me. The next thing was working on a production flow, and I kind of already noted that our production flow and our marketing timelines have been accelerated, and that's just the nature of the marketplace. Got more folks paying attention, spending more time online, and so we did have to make quite a bit of adjustments in our normal production flow. So here, it's just knowing really what that is, and trying to flag anything that might get in your way. And when I see roadblocks, I really lean on my steering team to help me break down those barriers. Like I said before, I'm always looking for folks who either might be interested in being part of that approval process, or might be the kind of person in the organization that wants to raise a hand to slow things down, might be like a roadblock, and I invite them into the conversation. Bringing them into steering meetings has been really great. You know, sometimes I'm hesitant to bring in someone who is going to push back into a meeting like that, but I found when they surround themselves with others that are already on board with an idea, they kind of are able to do some self-debate among that steering group of decision makers, and come to consensus together. So finding people that push back, I like putting them right in the same room as the other folks that are big cheerleaders. And you end up finding a common ground and are able to work through whatever it is that might be slowing you down. And in this environment, it's really hard to get slowed down. Timelines are so quick. So a recap, and then we can do some questions. You know, in higher education and likely in other large decentralized organizations, we often refer to our structure as being siloed. And people working in separate silos, not communicating with each other, having a really hard time collaborating. And I'm finding that in this environment, those silos are coming down, and the collaboration work is happening. And it's really exciting. It's exciting to see digital strategies that we've had on the shelf for 10 to 15 years. Those playbooks are coming out and being really handy, and leadership is in support. So I hope you find the article helpful. I'm also happy to share any of those Airtable templates if folks are into Airtable. I've got the content intake form and the form where I was collecting different roles handy for anyone who wants to grab that.
Thank you very much, Ashley. That was really, really interesting. Thanks for sharing the insights.
Of course.
So we have some time for questions, and I'll start with two quick ones. The answer might be longer, but the question is first on this title, content operations, which as a term is something that I've been kind of using for give or take a year. To me, that besides everything you mentioned, that specifically also addresses the gap that there tends to be between strategy and execution.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that at Cornell Alumni?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually just recently had a title change. It's so recent that there hasn't been any announcement, but people have found it if they look me up in the Cornell system with this. So this new title is out there, and it's Director of Marketing Operations. And in the description of my role, it is essentially a lead content strategist. And so where my role really dovetails is that I do sit on the leadership team and the strategy team for communications, but I sit in a position where I have the team that's executing across channels reporting up through me. So email, social media, direct mail, the web. I'm able to oversee multi-channel content strategy in that way. But the other part of it that's really important to the operations function is the feedback loop that you get from the performance of those campaigns and performance of that content. And so I have an analyst that sits on my team, and our job is not just to make sure that the communication is getting executed, but then to also review the results and to report back on the performance and to really have a lot of the audience insights sit with us so that we're able to adjust, not just based on how people are reacting to what we put out there, but also listening to what new needs might be arising to make sure that our content flow is serving the audience needs, performing well, serving the audience. I see that as a big part of what operations does.
Cool. And then the second part is on the word that hasn't been used yet in this call, and that's scalability.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah. It's interesting because usually when I'm talking about scalability, I'm talking about things that our organization does really well on a one-to-one basis. So those are these in-person events. It's our major and principal gift officers who cultivate relationships with individuals over many years by meeting with them in person. And I'm always looking for, like, what's that secret sauce? Like, what does that principal gift officer know how to do on a one-to-one basis that we could scale for the masses? Is there something that they're saying? Is it the way that they're saying it? Is it the tone that they strike? And how do they develop that relationship at the highest level? And is there anything in there that could translate online in a digital format to serve more people who wouldn't ever have the opportunity to have an individual gift officer working with them or an individual engagement officer working with them? So now where those one-to-one relationships and those in-person relationships are really stressed, we've actually got a whole nother cohort that's trying to figure this out and what this is going to look like. So it's not just at scale, but it's a whole shift in the way we communicate with each other and what communication technology can do for us. So it's an interesting question. I think the platforms that we have allow us to scale up to reach more people, but I think it works best when you can identify what it really is at the core of that relationship that you're trying to scale, and then picking the right tool and the right channel to simulate that as best as possible.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, let's hand it over to London and Gavin. Are you okay, Gavin, to go on mute? Or are you walking somewhere with too much background noise?
I'm here, Yanis. Hi. Actually,
Hi,
thank you. That was so interesting.
It's nice and sunny
it's a gorgeous day in London. Yeah, I was speaking to Yanis yesterday from here as well. Thank you. So amazing to hear about your work there, and really fascinating time. We work with a lot of universities. I just heard you mention my favorite words, content gap.
Yeah.
And just anything you could share on that in terms of like how you maybe identified you got all those subjects and so forth. Yeah. Just a little bit more about that would be amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I started by looking at where some other large communities that our folks live, how they were organizing their content and what themes they were looking at. So I'm looking at how LinkedIn was organizing content themes in their LinkedIn Learning. We know that in times like this, where a large impending recession is upon us, that people come back to their institution for support, for guidance. It's a place, you know, for them to look for resources, often free resources for their education, continuing their education. And so we knew that career support, like if it's not here, if they're not looking for it already, like it's gonna be coming. And I wasn't seeing a ton of content being produced in terms of career support. So that is an immediate gap that I know not only needs to be filled, but we probably need like that bucket overflowing. The other was that I was surprised in this wellness content. I expected there to be tons of it because of the sentiment of the time that we're in. But I was surprised that our university wasn't producing as much of it as they could. So I can share the link to Airtable because it has all of my buckets and themes in there.
That'd be nice to see. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that out so that you can see that. But I really did start by looking at how other industries were starting to organize content for people who are at home, or and again, I'm especially looking at the learning opportunities, or people might be having, you know, going to something like a LinkedIn Learning, where we might see them coming to our institution for similar kinds of content.
Fantastic. Thanks so much,
All right.
Ashley.
Thank you. So at the end here, we have 2 quick questions from Hillary, or 3 now. I don't know, Ashley, if you can see them on the chat.
Oh, who's the chat? Yeah. Okay.
I can just ask them.
All right, Hillary. Yeah, that's good. You got it.
Yeah, just to understand the scope of what you were working on, this is really a centralized content strategy effort for alumni content, correct? Not everything, right? Because you started the conversation by saying, oh, I enlisted everyone. And do you mean all the people creating content in all the colleges for all the audiences? Because there's, you know, prospective students, current students, community, you know, faculty issues, all that stuff in a higher education environment.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great point. I think part of part of our decentralized structure at Cornell is that we have an alumni, we have the division that I work in, but then we also have alumni offices in each one of our colleges and units. And sometimes they're the ones doing the communication, and sometimes in that college they have a separate communications office that is doing all of the things for all of the audiences. And so it was important to bring those communication folks into the fold.
But specifically for only an alumni audience. I just wanted to get clarification.
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't, because there's so many opportunities to bridge bridge those audiences. And so we're thinking about, how do we get alumni speaking to students who are trying to convert, like who are trying to make their college decision right now? How do we connect between the senior class and students, and they're going to be alumni in a few weeks? And so we certainly are focused in terms of content strategy and what I was talking about producing for the alumni office, but also looking for those opportunities to help streamline communication if we're all working on the same kind of campaign, and to just find those opportunities where our audiences can reach each other. And that's, I think, where a lot of the magic happens.
Got it. I'm so sorry.
All right.
I have to run. I have
no worries. I think we made it right on time. Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool.
Thank you for sharing. We'll stay in touch, and I'll share the notes and the recording and everything else.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Giannis. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.